Hello, Dr. Sam Dubé here once again for the Toronto Business Journal, and joining me today, straight from Bali, Indonesia, via Los Angeles, California, is Arica Angelo, dating and relationship expert for men and very prolific YouTuber in that capacity. And I must say, Arica, wow, some of your videos have well over 1 million views. Thank you so much for being with us here today.
Oh, it's my absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for having me.
Now, Bali, Indonesia. I understand your weather's probably a little better than mine here in my above the 49th parallel North America. We're at a 12-hour time difference as well.
Yes,
So,
yes.
Arica, looking at your videos, one could be struck by the titles, how to seduce her, what turns a woman on. No, but digging a little bit deeper, I came to realize that fundamentally you were about self-improvement, and
Absolutely.
that you were also very sympathetic toward men. So I think the first question I want to ask you is, can you tell us a little bit about your background and your history, and what prompted you to get into the dating and relationship business for men?
Yeah. I come from a background of parents who are ministers. And so my parents always kind of had a heart for people. And I didn't understand that, like, why mom and dad would let people would just move into our house, why mom and dad would just stay on the phone with people for hours, consoling them, why people would show up at our house crying and my parents were there for them. It was just, they kind of created this infrastructure within my heart to care for people, to want to support people, to want to improve their lives. And the one reoccurring theme that I saw with all these people that came to my parents in their ministry was always relationship. It was always relationship. If there was a huge calamity in their life, it was always centered around relationship. And while I have this heart for people, there's always also a very practical side of me of like, I don't want to just console people. I want them to have pragmatic solutions, tangible solutions, because to me, I would see people in this paradigm of, my parents would console them, but I wouldn't see a lot of change in these people's lives. And so I kind of went on this journey of researching and understanding, like, one, to heal myself, but also to go, how can you actually bring healing, facilitate change in a person's life so that their life is changed, so that the constant tension, the fights, the chaos, the drama, that is no longer part of their paradigm, that they have a new infrastructure in place. And what can I do to help create that new infrastructure inside of people so that they don't have to live in this chaotic, dramatic, reoccurring scene that just continues to play out in their lives?
Understood. So another thing that struck me was that you're very honest in your video, and you often share personal and often traumatic experiences in order for your viewer to more readily identify with you, and to show that you're human and that you yourself have had quite an interesting and constructive journey.
Yeah. Here's the thing, I believe that the one thing, Dr. Brene Brown has been such a huge pioneer on vulnerability, and vulnerability is something that my dad taught me very young. My dad was very anti-pride and very much like, just speak from your heart and be who you are, and don't be about pretense or hubrism. And so for me, vulnerability is like the cornerstone of what makes relationships actually work. And typically when I see relationships having conflict, when I see, people having conflicts with the opposite sex, it's because of lack of vulnerability. And so with that being said, me being open with my life, I believe that with vulnerability, a lesson that I learned very young in my teens was that someone has to go first. And so it's always a risk. Dr. Brene Brown says that vulnerability is emotional exposure, obviously with some boundaries in place. But yeah, I'm the parts of my story that I share are parts of my story that I've owned, and I feel very comfortable sharing those stories. But I feel like that creates a safe precedence for people to feel comfortable with being vulnerable, in a coaching setting and just showing up vulnerably in their lives. which I know facilitates real positive change.
Yeah, I think you hit it right on the head there, facilitating change. So speaking of change, your primary approach is that the man is responsible for his condition himself, and he is his own greatest obstacle and his own greatest asset. So can you comment a little bit to that approach? Because it's
Absolutely.
quite different than what a lot of dating coaches espouse, you know?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So, when I was getting started in this almost 13 years ago, I was reading through a lot of other like competitors dating advice, and everything was like, you need to do this to get this person to like you. And I'm like, why would you negate who you are to get someone else? Like that's a lost cause, because one, if you do get the person and then the relationship unfolds, who are you? You have no sense of self. And then you're only setting yourself up for failure to resent that person because you've lost yourself in the process. So my tagline is become the man that she can't resist while not losing yourself or her. And so I see a lot of men, it's like they'll do anything to get a woman. Most of the things that men do every day subconsciously is to get a woman, to keep a woman. But what men don't understand, I always say this in a lot of my YouTube videos, is you're the most important person. If you don't have you, if you lose sight of who you are, if you lose ground of who you are, if you forfeit that to get a woman, you're done. You're done. And really at the end of the day, this is why I preach so much about vulnerabilities, because when a woman chooses you, she's actually choosing you, not who you think you should be, but she wants a real you. But when we say these things like just be the real you, it's very simple advice, but it's very difficult to actually live by that, because we're so conditioned to not be ourselves and to perform and to put on this false exterior of who we think we should be. But that's not who she falls in love with. That's not who her heart feels safe with. Her heart feels safe with the man that you truly are. And so she can't fall in love with you unless you're showing up with that big heart of yours.
So what are some of the first steps that a guy would take, a guy who maybe is convinced that he has to be something that he's not in order to attract, the woman that he desires, or a woman at all? What
Yeah.
I mean by that is, if there's someone that seems to be so deeply entrenched in the idea that I'm not good enough, I'm not valuable, I'm not a good person, I don't like myself.
Yeah.
One of the key quotes in some of your videos is know your value.
Yes.
Can you
Yes.
can you explain that to us?
Absolutely. When someone's so entrenched with I'm not worthy, I'm not this, that is a story that they are telling themselves over and over and over. And I have this, it's an emotional warrior program. And in that first week, I talk about just this, your story. Whatever your story is, whatever you're telling yourself, you will build your life on top of that. So a person who has extreme self-worth and value issues, I always say, like, first get very clear on where that comes from. And before people are even willing to do that, I ask them, evaluate if that's working for you. If that mindset, that story that you're telling yourself, what is it produced in your life? What do you have to show for in your life based off of that story? What is that story bringing into your life? And so when a person realizes that, that's their kind of come to Jesus moment of, wait a minute, this thing that I keep telling myself, while it may be cathartic and self-soothing on some subconscious level, this is really shooting me in the foot with women. This is sabotaging my relationship. This isn't worth it. So first they have to get clear on that. And then when it comes to building value, I believe personally, what I was saying in my own program is like, first identify like where in your story the lack of value came up. Because what I see too many people do is they jump into self-help and they go straight from I'm not valuable to now I've got all these affirmations that I'm declaring over myself. And I believe that that is very helpful, but that's later in the process. The first thing that you have to do is own your story. Like, where in your story were you told that you were not valuable? And let's bring some clarity around that. Let's bring healing to that and go, hey, really, that's not the truth. I am so sorry that that was your experience. Because I believe until we get healed in those areas, they'll continue to perpetuate themselves. That's why when you see people who have been in the, self-help, very positive movements, it's like, it only works for so long and it's not sustainable. And I believe that unless we go through the heart, It doesn't come with longevity. And so I'm like, those wounds were incurred in your heart as a child growing up, wherever your story took that turn. And until that gets addressed, until that gets validated and it gets seen, and then it gets covered with some compassion and forgiveness, that's the healing process. And once you start from that, then you're starting from a solid place of, now I can take ownership over myself. But so many people want to forget that process because there's pain there. And we will do everything to avoid pain, which is why we'll stay on our phones in a very social setting, because we don't want to feel the pain of rejection. So we got to look important. When you look at the person's phone, what are they doing? They're playing on Instagram. You're not arranging meetings. You're not making money. You're just distracting yourself so that you can avoid the pain of being rejected by other people. You don't want to look like a loser all alone in a corner. So you're going to play on your phone. We do so many tactics every day to avoid pain. And so many people want to avoid that. And I'm like, but that is where your victory lies. Because really, if you can confront it, then you're healed from it. But if you're running away from that, then you are a slave to it.
That's really poignant. So having to deal with past trauma or conditioning, and then starting off with a solid foundation once you've dealt with it, lived it, accepted it, and owned it, as you said.
Yeah.
Now, supposing that, okay, that is a whole area, and obviously there's modalities and things that can help you in addition to your program, the Emotional Warrior. But then, how does this manifest, Arica, practically speaking? Because I know you said, we do judge a book by its cover, right?
Yeah.
So I understand that you give advice regarding appearance, regarding health. That how can you expect to be with, a truly, healthy, glowing woman if you yourself are not in that kind of shape, right? So
It's true.
Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, when we start to feel good about ourselves on the inside, we want to show that to the world, and a lot of men, it's like they say, should I be going to the gym? Absolutely. One, you should be doing it for yourself, because when you look in the mirror, you want to be proud of that guy. You don't want to walk in the world going, I have to wear clothes 3 times bigger than my body because I'm in shame. No, you want to be able to show your assets to the world. And women are looking. It's like, I think that, men have this misconception that women are not visual. That's not true. If you wear a shirt that shows your muscles, if you wear tight pants that show your package, if you, you wear a slim cut shirt that shows that nice waist, she's paying attention to all of that, that turns her on. And so that's why I think practically, like, you have to show up in the world as if you want to be seen. And I tell guys, you think fashion doesn't matter, you think your appearance doesn't matter, and you're shooting yourself in the foot. You're actually creating more work for yourself. You would make your life so much easier if you would just clean up your wardrobe, clean up your look, and actually give women a reason to want to look your way. But most guys end up just shooting themselves in the, they walk out the door, they're in baggy clothes, they haven't, shaved, they haven't taken care of themselves, and they're like, women are so hard to pick up. No, you're being an idiot. You're not dressing in a way that makes women want to desire you. Like, do yourself a favor. It's kind of like the Jerry Maguire, help me help you. Help yourself by how you show up in this world. Make an effort, and guess what? Women will start giving you the time of day.
So I think, a lot of men are frustrated, especially younger men, because they want to be attractive or they want to be loved for who they are, and they often see women, being attracted to physical appearance as superficial, right? And yet you're describing a mechanism here where the without is reflective of the within, right? And this is, I think, what maybe biologically or psychologically women are starting from, is that what they see on the outside is a reflection on the inside. Now, some men take that to another level where they will, buy the most expensive clothing and jewelry and such, and then, inside is maybe not so reflexive of the outside, right? So I think it can work both ways, but we are animals, right? To an extent, right? We there's some programming here, whether you like it or not. I think that genetics or Evo or whatever you want to call it, and I think this is what you're appealing to, and I think through your experience, you're stating things that work, right?
Yeah.
That work, and whether we like it or not, um,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so,
Absolutely.
yeah, and you went on to talk about online dating, for example, and profiles. So actually,
Yeah.
can you talk to that a little bit right now? Like, what are some of the big, shall we say, faux pas or mistakes, and then how can someone create a good profile?
Absolutely. One, do not post pictures of you and your friends. Unless you want to have her dating your friends, she's not on there to meet your friends. She's not on there to meet your mom. She's
Oh, really?
there to meet you. Yeah, I see so many guys. It's like, here's a group photo of me and my friends. I'm not trying to date your friends unless they look better than you,
Yeah, and
then
then well,
maybe.
who's that? Hey, hold on, who's
Well, who's
that?
that? Let me get on his Instagram. Let me find that guy. No, it's like it's true. It happens. It's like, oh, but that friend
Oh,
of, oh, his Instagram. Let me go. I'm gonna. Oh, yep, I'll follow that. Okay,
oh, you
thank you,
see some
buddy.
experience, Erica. Come on. Oh
I
dear.
don't know. I don't know if I'll mea culpa to that,
Okay.
but yeah, it's like put a good picture of yourself. The other thing I always tell guys is, listen, get your girlfriends around you, like ask for their help and ask them to like help pick out pictures. I think body shots are helpful. It shows a woman like what she's working with. Um, and I think that guys need to have a combination of friendly and sultry. And I know that for some guys, it's like, okay, sultry, that's a bit much, but it's not, because remember, women are sexual people just as much as men are. And so I had a buddy of mine, he was showing me his profile, and I go, hey, bud, like you look like such a nice guy, but I'm not going to want to F you in these pictures. Like nothing about you like stimulates that wild woman in me. You look like a really sweet guy that I could be really good friends with. And he was like, oh my God, I didn't even see that in my pictures. And it's like, yeah, give her that masculine raw edge in one of your pictures. Give her that sultry warrior look so that she goes, okay, like at the end of the day, this guy's going to push me up against the wall, twist my neck, bite all over me, and give it to me really good. But if you don't put a picture on there and you're just like, she's like, all right, well, so we'll like,
Okay, so
go hiking
you
together.
sold the masculine warrior thing, but the problem here is in the interpretation. So what a guy or one guy might feel is really appealing to a woman may be totally repulsive to a woman, and vice versa, right? So like,
Sure.
can you give some advice on what a nice what kind of photos would elicit that urge that you just described?
Yeah, I think doing like a masculine activity, like showing yourself sweaty, showing yourself playing a sport, doing something masculine. But when I say sultry, I mean like a serious pose. Like, you can smile, but then you can, if I smile at you and then I do this, that it's like, yeah, like something sultry. It's like, yeah, like
Yeah.
I want to bite you. I want to grab into you. It's like, give her a little bit of that like sultry face, that little, it's a serious, but with a little smirk.
Okay, so on a photo, right? Because we're not talking about videos here, right? You can't post.
No, you can't do videos.
No.
Yeah, it's just photos. Just
Yeah.
photos. I think you can do like little animated videos, but I wouldn't suggest those, because what those do is they have a longer loading time.
Hmm.
And because you're such in a swipe mood, it's like every time that there's a video and it takes a load, it's like this is taking too long, swipe left. And it's like
Oh,
I think the videos actually create more problems for you.
I didn't know that.
So
Wow, the technology's changed even. Okay, that's interesting. So
yeah.
something masculine, and what would that be? What other things would that be? So sweaty. Like what is masculine for a guy may not be for a woman. I've seen some guys trying to pick up photos and they think are masculine. It's like, no, that's just really dirty. Like, I mean, he's covered in crap, and like I don't even know what's going on in that photo. It looks like he's wrestling a car or something. Like, like what?
Yeah, I would say does it look like it can go on the cover of a Sports Illustrated magazine?
Okay, okay, all right.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
all right. That's
Yeah.
very
Like
valuable.
think of how the guys pose on there. Like they still look good. Sometimes they're sweaty, sometimes they're in action, but it's still presentable.
Mhm.
And I think too, in your profile, when you're writing your profile, you gotta show your personality. Now, listen, we all have different personalities, but you have to show like, if you have humor, really lead with that. If you're really like deep soul, then lead with that. Like, find your greatest asset and lead with that in your profile. You know, humor really works for guys with women. And the other thing is like when you do match with a woman, you know, make your introduction, say something cheeky, say something funny, and then make it a goal to get her out on a date. And it's like at the end of the day, she's not on that dating profile to have another pen pal. And I know some guys say, well, some women don't like to meet right away. Then let her tell you that. She's a grown ass woman. Let her tell you that that's not what she's into. But your job as a man is to not be her pen pal on this dating site. That's not what it's set up for. It's set up for the two of you to actually connect. So I always encourage men, push for that connection right away. And if she goes, oh, it's too soon, or then let her say that. Like that's her responsibility to communicate for herself.
Okay. All right. That's really interesting. Now, one of the complaints you often hear from men is that, oh, you know, like women, they'll see one bad picture and it's, you know, you're gone sort of thing. You don't even get to reading my profile. So is this assuming that, you know, the pictures are all kind of appealing and then when we'll look at a profile, or a woman like read a profile first, or like what in your experience?
The pictures have to be appealing. And I think that here's the thing, most guys don't know what makes an appealing picture. And so I would say hire a coach. Unfortunately, I don't do that in my business anymore, but hire a coach or ask the people in your life, ask your friends, like ask attractive girlfriends who are out dating, like, do these pictures look good on me? But don't assume that they do. And I think too many guys assume, oh yeah, I know what looks good. No, you don't. You don't. If you did, you'd be getting more action.
Yeah, I mean, that's for sure. I will definitely vouch for that. I've seen, you know, so many men just using the wrong photos. Men that I know personally that are, you know, good looking, upstanding guys and just, you know, crappy. I mean, like it's hard for us to judge, you know, especially when we're trying to achieve a predetermined outcome, right? And that we're biased toward as well. So it's like, oh no, I think that she'll find this attractive. It's like, well, no, hold on a second here. Get an opinion, you know, get an opinion from someone who can really make a good assessment. Like you were saying, women.
Feedback is your best ally. You know, it's back to vulnerability. It's a very vulnerable thing to do, to ask your friends like, hey, what do you think of this? But it's vulnerable, but listen, it could save you years. It can save you tons of frustration. And, you know, I hear so many people going, oh, I'm so frustrated with dating apps and this and that. And I'm like, have you ever gotten anyone's feedback on what you're doing? Oh no, why would I do that? Okay, we'll keep doing the same damn thing and keep getting the same damn results. You know, it's like, no, make your life easier. Get some feedback, make it easy on yourself.
Arica, we're on the topic of online dating, so I'm gonna ask this question, and I hadn't intended to, but you know, OkCupid looked at some stats years ago, and it was a little bit concerning what they found. And what they found was that, you know, while men tended to initiate conversation with women that were, you know, within what would be considered their attractiveness range, so there was this very strong overlap between, you know, men. Not only an overlap, but there was a bell curve distribution. So a normal distribution when men were approaching women. And in other words, they weren't necessarily shooting for women that they saw as really, you know, out of their league type thing. I don't particularly personally believe in leagues myself, but what they found though with the women was that it was like 80% of the women going for between 10 to 20% of what they considered the most attractive photos, the most attractive guys. And so a lot of men in the, you know, average to, you know, below average, you know, objective appearance of their photos got no responses, no messages at all. So can you comment on that? Is this just something that, it kind of plays into the different gender dynamic, and we just kind of have to accept that because women are doing the shopping and it kind of plays into that? Or is there something else going on here? Can you enlighten us, Arica?
I think it's a nature thing. I just watched David Attenborough's, it's called Colors on Netflix right now.
Attenborough. And you think, yeah,
I'm probably saying that wrong.
No, that's okay.
He did this whole thing with birds and things like that, and it's always the male. And my dad used to tell me as a kid, he was like, yeah, it's always the male species that's the more beautiful one of animals. And I hated that. And I was like, but he's true. Like there's the peacocks, all these things. But what do? The most beautiful one is the one that gets the woman. And so that's why I always tell men, like, listen, let's just be honest. If looks isn't your gift, then you better find your value, you better find your strengths, and you better lead with that. If you're a smart guy with marketing, then say, I'm a killer marketer. If you're great at investing, I'm great at. Find your assets. If you're a trainer, if you're good with working out, if you're good with flying planes, like lead with your assets. If looks is not your asset, then you better lead with your other assets. Because at the end of the day, like, yeah, a woman may choose a better guy on a dating app because he's attractive, but that doesn't necessarily mean that that particular guy can keep her, because there are a lot of good looking guys who kind of just led with their looks, but they've not done any inner work. Some of them are not the brightest eggs in the basket, or, or the sharpest tool in a toolbox. It's like, so, at the end of the day, some women are like, I just want someone with substance. And so if you're a guy, understand what substance you bring and lead with that in your profile. Show that in your pictures.
Yeah, and I think the format of online dating itself is conducive to, the visual imagery being very prioritized, right? Very prominent.
Yeah.
And so, to say that women are not visual is not accurate, but I will say that women often complain that men objectify women for their looks, right? But I will go farther, and I will say women also objectify men, and
absolutely.
Yeah, but not just in looks. I think women objectify men for their competency. I think women objectify men for their occupation and their actions, more so than men do with
yeah.
women.
It's a state of survival, right? So a woman's need is to feel safe, and a man's need is to feel respected. So what's going to make her feel safe in this world? Money. How are you? And not saying that she needs a guy who's a multi-billionaire, but you better have your shit together. You better have your finances in order, because that's going to make her feel safe. And, it's like, at the end of the day, like, you want to feel respected as a man, as you should. But these are the core needs that we all have. And so, yeah, she's definitely judging you on that, because why? It's answering a core need in her heart, which is safety.
Yes, safety and security. I
Yeah.
think there's an old Arabic saying that a woman is better off marrying a man that loves her than marrying a man that she loves. And I mean, that sounds kind of depressing, but the idea the idea behind it is that if she can find a man who loves her, he'll do everything to give her security and safety, right, and support
Yeah.
her.
Yeah.
And this was, I think, originally the idea behind the polygamy, with men taking many wives if he could support them, right, through his resources. Right. If a woman married a man that she truly loved, like the starving musician, for instance, that she might be in for some hardship. And I think that's where that saying comes from. But anyway, in the modern world, it's even been found that women who make a lot of money are often attracted to men who make more money than they do.
Yeah.
They want to feel that. Sorry, go ahead.
And I think things are shifting. And this is one thing, this is why I preach so hard about my emotional warrior thing. It's because at the end of the day, the paradigm is shifting. We're in such a funky place in time where the pendulum is just kind of to the extreme. Women are making their own money. Not all women. We still have a long way to go before we feel like we're on the same playing field. But women are making their own money. They are feeling more independent. So when they look at a man, she goes, okay, back in the days, like, I needed you for my survival and safety in the world. I no longer need that. I'm able to provide that for myself. So what is it that a man can do now? And I think that's where men feel very lost in masculinity. There's a lot of questions around masculinity. What is it that makes me a man? And this is what I say. The one thing that you can now provide her is to become that emotional warrior for her. Why? Because while a woman is independent and she's making her own money, that's a very small facet of life. There's so many other facets to life. And so it's like, at the end of the day, okay, so she's powerful and she made money, but shit hit the fan at work. Can she come home to a strong man with arms who can hear what her day was like, and to say, and have the emotional intelligence, the wherewithal to go, what is it that you need from me in this moment? Do you need to be consoled? Do you need to be championed? What do you need in that moment? Let me tell you what, you can't put a price on a man that can offer that to you.
Right.
And not many men know how to do that.
That seems even more fundamental to the idea of, the that's a more fundamental manifestation of safety, security, and resources, right? That's the kind of the ultimate resource in a sense, right? Is that emotional support and understanding and validation and the sharing, right?
Well, they say baseline, if you look at the survival metric, it's like, do I have a home? Do I have
Oh
shelter? Do I
yes,
have that? And so,
Maslow's
so
hierarchy of needs. Yes, yes.
yeah. So in terms of that, she needs to have that. So that's what I'm saying. Like women are starting to give that to themselves. Then comes the emotional, and that's where men are like, why I'm so lost. I'm like, but there's the missing piece right there, is that emotional fortitude, that emotional awareness,
Yeah.
that you can offer her, that men don't realize. Like that's a tool that you can give her that money can't buy her.
No, I
Her
see.
girlfriends can't give that to her.
So you're
I even tell
sorry, go ahead.
I tell men, like, if something goes on in my life and I call my best friend, I call my girls, they can bring that nurturing side to me, which I'm so grateful for. But man, it's something about like being in a man's arms when a man says, like just today, I shared something very vulnerable that happened to me in Bali with you before the call started. And you're like, as a man, you're like, Arica, I'm so sorry. That softened my heart and I started crying with you. There is something about a man's strength, that when a man in his strength says, he looks you in the eyes and says, I'm so sorry that happened to you, it softens us as a woman. It allows us to be feminine. And I think that that's something that women, as we're getting strong, we're kind of, the pendulum is very high because in order to do that, a lot of us operate out of our masculine. I'm not saying all women do, but a lot of us do. It's like we can't beat them, join them. So we become very masculine. But it takes a strong man to go, hey, you don't have to show up like that in this moment. You get to be soft. You get to be tender. You get to be raw. You get to be vulnerable. And it's like when a woman can have that yin yang in her life, it's like that is what creates a fulfilled woman, is when she can have both polarities.
It's really intriguing you mentioned this because, my mother is the strongest woman I know, and the strongest person I know.
Yeah.
And she's a hero to me for sure.
Mm.
But I knew at a very young age that even the strongest woman has that feminine side.
Absolutely.
And as a result, I'm attracted to strong women. And I enjoy being that emotional support and being that, they still crave a strong male. They do.
Yeah, and this is where I go back to men valuing themselves. Because if men don't support and love themselves, what happens is, I always say, like, you can become the perpetual nice guy that's always there for her emotionally. But she needs a man who's not going to be there just emotional. That's why I say emotional and then warrior, because she still needs that warrior side. So when she comes home and she's like bitching about something, and then he goes, hold on, you need to calm down and breathe. But the nice guy is not going to do that. The guy who's just being emotional for her, he's not going to call her out on her shit. A strong woman needs that as well. She needs, there's a beautiful book by a guy named David Guetta called The Way of the Superior Man. And it's so beautiful. Yeah, because he's like, no, you have to be in your own strength as a man. And so I don't want anyone to be confused by what I'm saying. Be like, oh, just be like an emotional support dog. Hell no, she's not going to have sex with you. This is what we call the nice guy. This is what we call, and on YouTube, the friend zone guy. I'm not saying just, you still have to have that warrior element to her, to yourself, to really support her and for her to respect you. And you can't cultivate that for her unless you cultivate it for yourself first.
Absolutely. I want to get back to the whole idea of the nice guy. But one of the statements that you made that I found really wonderful was, to consider what are the experiences that she went through to become the woman that she is today.
That's a loaded question. It's a loaded question. It's so true. And when a man can ask that, when he can pull that out of her very delicately, that's the kind of guy that she gives her heart over to. That's the guy that she can surrender to when he's interested in her story, when he puts the missing pieces together of, okay, this is what she's doing, but I know this part of her story. And so that when he can do that, oh man, that's when she can completely surrender to her man, because she feels seen. We as human beings, we all have a core need to be seen. We all want to be seen. It's like when a guy says, I want to be loved for who I am. I want to be seen for who I am. I want to be accepted. When a guy can do that, that is the ultimate path of like really seeing a woman.
That's really I mean it's deep. And
Yeah.
it brings you back to the idea of the nice guy, right? So when I look at the nice guy concept, I feel there's almost like two versions of the nice guy. There's the nice guy in name only who is trying to get something by acting a certain way. That there's this
Yeah.
kind of unspoken, if I do
Yeah.
this, I'm going to get this. And they don't really care about the woman at all. They've got an
Yeah.
agenda. And when they don't get what they want, their true colors show through. Okay.
Yeah.
Those can be
Yeah.
potentially, dangerous and unnerving guys. Right?
Sure. Sure. Sure.
There's guys that are genuinely good men, but
Yeah.
that are afraid to act in a certain way, as you have mentioned about owning their masculinity, finding their voice. I think that, as you and I have spoken of in the past, the societal conditioning, how men are raised often to not show vulnerability, and yet women can be very attracted to the right kind of vulnerability, especially
Right.
with a man who can be strong as well.
Yeah.
So there's this other kind of nice guy that I think, we can really talk to about what can this person do who's, afraid to act a certain way for fear of offending a woman, for fear of going against society's dictates, for fear of not falling in line with the crowd, for fear of Me Too, for fear of what can we say to these men?
I find with a lot of these guys, they're actually afraid of themselves, because here's the thing: when we try to people please, in order to please another person and negate yourself, like that's a form of like not loving yourself, right? It's like if I have to put my needs and what I want and my thoughts on the back burner to accommodate you, I've just negated myself to make you happy. Is that actually coming from a place of love? No, it's coming from a place of fear. It's coming from a place of self-protection. Are you actually being very nice to yourself in that process? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. And so with these kind of guys, I always say, like, buddy, you got to start facing yourself in the mirror. And most of these guys who live like this are actually very frustrated on the inside, because they feel like they're being taken advantage of. And I said, the reality is you are giving other people the permission to do that because you don't value yourself. You value fear, you value rejection over yourself. So don't be mad at the world because you're not even treating yourself right. And I know that's a very hard thing to hear. And I know they're like, but I just want to be nice. And I'm like, no, you don't. You just want to protect yourself. You just want to protect yourself from getting hurt. And you're not being nice to yourself. So you're actually not a nice guy. Because you're not being nice to you.
There's a whole book that talks about this called No More Mr. Nice Guy.
Yeah. Yeah.
In fact, it's quite profound. Your material covers so many topics, but as I mentioned, with this foundation of self-care and self-understanding, and I think that's why it works so well, is because as I mentioned, you do address many racy topics, and you do so very well, I must add. You often bring in experts as well to give their perspective, and I think that's wonderful. But I'd like to address some of those topics now, if we could, with your foundation, always understood to be there, right? An example would be, there's just so many. There's so many things I want to talk about. You've got videos on, what not to do on a first date, for instance.
Okay.
Right?
I'm glad you're going with the more safer stuff. I'm
Yeah,
like, okay, which one is he
hey,
going to say?
the night is young, Arica. The night is young. Or your morning is waning into afternoon. So,
Right, right,
so
right.
let's address that one for now.
Okay. It was what not to do on a first date.
Yeah, for example.
Yeah, don't talk about your ex-girlfriend.
Woo!
Leave it
Hallelujah.
alone.
Mm.
Politics, abortion, let it go. Right now, vaccine, non-vaccine, let it go. Mask, no mask. Listen to the little cartoon Frozen. Let it go.
Oh well,
Let it
I'm
go.
screwed. Yeah.
Yeah. I know it's hard because we want to like share the things that matter to us, but on a first date, it's just not appropriate. And here's the other thing. This is a big mistake that guys make on a first date, and I cannot emphasize this enough. This goes back to my foundation. So many guys get myopic on how to show up on the date so that she will approve of him, and they don't show up on the date going, do I approve of her?
Right. They
Let me
pedestrianize. Yeah.
let me make everything perfect for her. I just, what am I going to say next? Does she like the restaurant? Does she like the food? Is she happy? Blah, 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 blah. Meanwhile, it's like the guy's not evaluating how she's showing up on the date. Is she asking you, do you enjoy your food? Are you enjoying the restaurant? How is your day? Tell me about your background. Where do you come from? Do you like your work? What do you like about your work? And so a lot of guys over accommodate and they don't let the girl do any of the work on the date. And it's like, no, she has to show up just as much as you do. There's no entitlement here of she's just the princess and you're there to cater to her. There's an element of chivalry that I will always subscribe to. My deep South, my Texas roots, I will always believe that a man should be a man and be chivalrous. That's just my old belief system. But at the end of the day, like she still needs to be a woman, which is what? Nurturing, tender, caring. And is she showing up that way for you? And I think men, it's like she's giving you so many signs, but are you paying attention to them? Or are you so distracted with how you should show up so that she'll approve of you that you're missing out on, is this woman even worthy of your time?
So what are some of these signs that a woman can give you if she's interested?
She's asking questions about you. And then when you answer a question, she asks a deeper question. Expound on that for me. Like, what does that mean? And, there's a curiosity. She has a curiosity. You see her leaning in. You see her trying, you gauge that she's trying to understand. That's a woman that's genuinely interested. If she's getting nervous, I would say, like, pay attention. If a woman's fidgeting with her hair a lot, like, she's nervous. She's into you. She also doesn't want to mess it up. I know for me, when when I've gone on a first date and I'm nervous, like sometimes I get nervous about my stemware, like how I'm holding things. I'm just like, oh, don't look at me. Don't watch me. You get nervous. Like you start doing these goofy things because you're nervous. If you see her getting nervous with you and, smacking you on the arm and giggling and, rolling her eyes at you, those sort of things, this woman's into you. Like, pay attention to that.
Okay, another thing that you talk about quite a bit, which I find very interesting because I was a big fan of neurolinguistic programming in the day, is body language. Body language on both sides. Can you address some of the more pertinent points regarding, say, a man's body language and a woman's body language?
Right. So I think with a man, when posture is a big thing, right? For women or men, like posture, if we're slouched like this, I can't really, my shirt doesn't allow me to demonstrate, but if my shoulders are hunched over, it's like that is a symbol of don't look at me, I'm insecure, I'm guarding myself, I'm hiding, I'm protecting myself. But when we put our shoulders back and it's just like we're kind of leaning to the side and we're just acknowledging the person, like when they say something, nodding our head and saying, oh, I can see that, giving them feedback, but just kind of keeping that calm, cool stance of good posture, a little bit of a lean when she says something, leaning in. And I always tell men, like, interject touch. You can touch her hand, you can touch her arm, you can touch her, her shoulder. Like, all these things are appropriate. If she has hair in her face, like, move it out of her. Don't be afraid to touch her. And I know guys go, oh, me too, me too. I'm talking about arms here. I'm not telling you to go and pinch her nipple on the middle of a first date. I'm saying, just a little touch here, a little touch there, because touch is what establishes connection. And if you see her pull back, then okay, then she's not a touchy girl, and you know to pull back. But interjecting touch, I think, is a huge physical dynamic that many men miss out on. And then, you hear so many women, they go, oh, I didn't feel a connection with him because the guy was doing too much of this and he didn't do any of this. I can see my friends and have a conversation with them, but if I bring them in and I hug them, or there's that physical connection, that physical touch there, that changes the whole dynamic of connection.
You also talk about a particular way to talk to a woman to make her feel wanted. And
Yeah.
can you speak to that a little bit? And it's this is not about the pickup artistry, right? We talk about the PUA
Yeah.
movement, and
Yeah.
what you get is a lot of guys superficially acting in ways that they feel are going to
Yeah.
trigger certain responses from women, and things like negging, where you don't build them up, you actually say a compliment, but it's a backhanded compliment, and so you get them thinking, oh, does he really think I look good in this dress? But then he said it didn't go with my pantyhose or something, and you get her thinking, and the whole idea is to get her going on stuff and to keep her thinking about you and to do things that are supposed to trigger these responses, but they're not genuine. They're not genuine at all, right?
And here's what I say about that, because I had a lot of friends who were in that community when I first got it started, and I've seen guys try to do this, and I always say that stuff works only with a very insecure woman. When you're
I
wanting a
couldn't agree
woman
more.
who's on the same playing field as you, she's strong like you, she's accomplished like you, she has vision like you, when you're looking for a partner in crime, that shit doesn't work on her. Because I remember I met this was years ago in Santa Monica, and I met a young guy, and he just was like, in England they say taking the
He was
piss.
using PUA, right?
He was just doing this, and I looked at him and I said, I don't appreciate this shit, and I turned around and I walked out.
Mm.
And it's like, a strong woman doesn't need to be prodded like that. Like, if you can just ask her like sincere questions, that's what's going to help you guys actually see if you're a match or not. But if you're playing a game the whole time, what you're doing is you're establishing to her that she can't feel safe with you, and putting her down, it's just bringing her down. So you're not getting the best side of her. So you don't even know if this woman is valid to be in your life, because you've just put her down so much. So it's like you don't get a fair representation of who she is, and she doesn't get a fair representation of who you are. So what's the point of you two hanging out?
That's
You
a
don't
good
even know
point.
who each other are.
No, and a lot of the techniques are kind of like extrapolations of behaviors that women might uh, find when it's done naturally, and when it's done in without this kind of you know I don't really know. It's like without this kind of I mean, a woman can tell. Like the women, certainly the women I'd be interested in would be able to tell the
Yeah.
genuineness, right? Because
Yeah.
I've seen guys trying to pull stuff off, and some are good and smooth, right? And then one might feel manipulated, but then others, and you're just like, oh, what? Man, that's so not genuine. It's not even funny, Like, sorry, you go ahead.
Yeah, I have this thing. I'm like, energy don't lie. Energy don't lie. And what I mean by that is, like, a woman, when she's with you, like, she can feel whether you're coming from fear and insecurity or whether you're coming from sincerity. And a lot of these guys, they're picking up these methods. Why? Because they're insecure, they're fearful that they could possibly be rejected. So they need all these bag of tricks. And it's like, that's one, it's exhausting. And a woman can feel that. She can feel him trying too hard, she can feel him playing games, she can feel him pulling back and throwing arrows at her. She feels all that. And a woman who's she's done her work, she's a woman of value, she's gonna be like, this guy's a waste of my time. And he is. And so it's like, listen, like, be sincere with her. Like, that's gonna get the best response. Like, what is it that you want out of her, and where do you want it to go with her, and ask questions that lead up to that. But don't build a bigger barrier between the two of you by playing these games and creating these antics that just create a lot of instability for connection.
Yeah, and at the very least, it's trying to be something that you're not, also, right?
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
very least. But what's funny is that there are some members of the pickup archery community who started off that way, and then eventually
Yeah.
evolved, and then became more like you about self
Yeah.
improvement. right? And
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
genuine self-improvement and genuine connection, and then saying that, that initial stuff, this is just trying to emulate. But really,
Yeah.
you come into that and you start to behave in that more attractive way naturally when you come into yourself and you know yourself and you become confident in yourself and your accomplishments and your appearance and all this, right? So it really
Yeah.
truly is about the self, right?
And self-acceptance. I had a girlfriend of mine. She married a guy, and he was not the most attractive guy. Doesn't have a lot of money, going bald, little bit big of a beer belly. But this guy has so much self-acceptance. He gives zero shits about what people think, and he's just a 100% honey badger. The old
Yeah.
YouTube video that was out. You honey badger don't give a fuck. You know, he just doesn't. And so it's like everyone's like, and even at their wedding, he was like, I'm sure everyone's like, how did I get her? And we're all like, yeah, we would really like to know how you got her. But this guy, his level of self-acceptance is so refreshing. It's also alarming too, because you're like, wow, you don't really encounter people who accept themselves so much. But it really, like when we say self-love and just be yourself, essentially like you have to accept yourself, which that's a journey. That is a real journey, which is, I'm going to keep saying it, my emotional warrior program. It's like, really, you have to go on that journey of accepting yourself, because too many times, like, society tells us why we're not okay. And we really have to counteract that with, what is it that makes me valuable? What is it what do I appreciate? What's unique about me? And it's like, when you can really come to terms with that and really accept that, then it's no longer about, am I going to get rejected or not? That you're playing in a different field now. Now it's just like, this is who I am. And who is it that I want to bring into my life? Not who's going to accept me. No, you've already accepted yourself.
You've already accepted yourself.
Yeah.
It's hard not to talk about men and self-improvement and, the vulnerabilities and strengths of men without talking about pornography. And I did want to bring this up to you because I think it's a big issue today. And you've got, a lot of sex positive people who, have no limits really on
Yeah.
that. And my response to that is, well, I'm exercise positive, but there's certain things I won't do for exercise. There's certain things I won't, do as exercise, and there's certain types of exercise I won't abuse, or that. And
Sure.
so and I know you were very honest in one of your videos that in a prior relationship, your partner was addicted to pornography.
You have done your research. I'm like, damn, that's an older bill. Yes, I did. Yeah. And it was one of the most painful experiences I've ever gone through in my life.
I'm very sorry.
It's so painful. Yeah.
Can you talk to that a little bit? Can you share that?
Absolutely. Yeah, I had a partner, and I felt very much in love. And then I just, women were very intuitive, and intuitively I just felt there's a huge disconnect here. Something has switched. And it was a big source of shame in this person's life. And I saw that they were very agitated, very frustrated. They were very, disconnected from me. They started putting me down, and I was like, 1 + 1 is not equaling 2 here. Like, something else is up. And so I just got this idea, and I know some guys get really pissed about this. It's like, oh, it's an invasion of privacy. And I'm like, typically people who are very consumed with that are also people who are lying and hiding something, And so I was like, there's something going on here. And I went on his computer and I saw these very graphic images that were not even sexual. It was just super graphic. And I was like, this isn't even, in my opinion, this isn't even beautiful. It's just graphic. And I said, you've been putting me down and you've been judging me, and look at the shit that you're hiding here. And it was just like opening Pandora's box to a huge source of shame in his life. And what happened in that process is, because that was his go-to when life was too stressful, when he couldn't handle things, that was his relief. He would go there, watch porn, jack off, and it was like, that was his stress relief. But what happened is it created this false intimacy of like, I can feel safe I can feel accepted and supported in this environment, but it's with a screen. And so when human beings come into your lives and it's like you actually have to interact with them, you don't have any grid for that. You don't have any the word is I'm losing the word, but you don't have any infrastructure to accept that. It's like you're so conditioned with this screen that when a human being actually comes in, it's too much. And so then you become disillusioned. Like all women should look like this. They should have this body. All women should come this way. All women should, and it creates this facade in the mind that's no longer tangible. And it's a really just a form of self-protection, because at the end of the day, it's like, these people can't hurt me. This woman, no matter what I do, she accepts me. She's going to moan for me. She's going to do graphic things for me. And I, as a man, am going to feel accepted. I'm going to feel stimulated by her. But at the end of the day, like, that woman doesn't know you and she doesn't accept you. And at the end of the day, you're just alone in front of a screen.
You know, it's interesting, Erica. There's more and more neuroscience research into addiction, and there's arguments that pornography, you can't have an addiction to pornography. I happen to believe the opposite. I happen to believe that you absolutely can have an addiction to pornography, and there's some research in looking at how it actually accesses the same circuitry as that of craving for hard drugs.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's a very real thing, and it causes a conditioning in men and women that becomes
Absolutely.
very, very difficult to break. And here's one thing, not to preach, but when you see a image on the screen, we're the product of few 100,000 years, at least in our current form, anatomical human beings. And you see that, and your nervous system can interpret that as a viable mate. Do you know what I mean? Like on some fundamental level. And what are you doing to that mechanism? Because sex is the strongest drive, next to air, right?
Yeah.
Like next to air. I mean, even animals have been known to dehydrate themselves and starve to death because they're seeking sexual stimulation versus the food and the water. So this is such a fundamental drive to keep the race going. You can imagine that the circuitry is so powerful, right? And to play into that on a daily basis, it can't help but hurt us at a very fundamental, level. And this is what we're dealing with, right? And then you went on to talk about how even when you're not in a relationship, it hurts the people around. It hurts you, and it hurts any future relationship, right?
Yeah. Thankfully it really destroyed my confidence as a woman. I became very skinny. I wasn't eating as much. I mean, it really, and I'm a strong girl, and it really did a number on me. And it's like, you hear marriages falling apart, families breaking up over porn addiction. And it's like, men just, when they become addicted to this, or women, you become desensitized to real intimacy, is essentially, and that's what we are all craving for. And it's like, the one thing that you're going to the screen for to solve is actually your greatest enemy. It's actually sabotaging your intimacy, that need for acceptance, that need to feel okay in the world that porn provides you, is actually inhibiting you to have that actual physical experience of it.
And a lot of men will turn to it at the first sign of stress or anxiety. That's the outlet. They have it's a craving for that right away. And how is that solving anything?
No.
And it's my heart goes out to anyone with this issue, because it's just such a powerful mechanism, and
I know the guy that I was with to come out, because what I did, and I had a very honest conversation with the people in his life, and I said, listen, like, I'm leaving this relationship, but he's going to need support,
Yeah.
And he was like, I can't believe you did that. And then it ended up like saving his life. He had to become very aggressive with it for himself. He said that he would show up at work and guys would say, like, oh, look at this picture of this woman. And he said, no. And he said, get that shit out of my face. And he got just super aggressive with it. And he said, this has destroyed my life. I have had an addiction with this. It has caused all of my relationships to fail. And he got very aggressive with his journey of recovery. And I think it's something that requires a lot of energy, a lot of determination, a lot of focus, because when you realize the cost of it, what is this costing me? What is this addiction costing me? And for him, the cost was so heavy that he became very aggressive with his journey to come out of it. And I really commend him for that, because that's not an easy task.
But are most men even aware of the cost? Or did they just get so caught up?
I think they get so caught up, and they don't, when you start disconnecting like that, it's like, I always felt like married men, I'm like, if you could have a sincere relationship with your wife where you guys are honest, can you imagine like having a vulnerable conversation with your wife and coming home and saying, I've had a really shit day, I'm stressed out. Man, what would make me feel so wonderful and powerful is making love to your beautiful body. I remember, this is a bit personal, but I remember I was in a relationship and the guy had just, super personal. He had just had a really rough day at work, and he just looked completely just distraught. And I was like, as a woman, I'm like, not my man, not on my watch. Is my man gonna come home distraught and concerned? And I was like, take off those clothes, young man. And I made love to that man, and he went back and told his coworkers, like, I can't believe it. Like, I went home to Arica. She made love to me. Like, I felt such shit, and now I feel great. And it's like, yeah, can you imagine like having that as your reality, as opposed to being in front of a screen, touching on yourself and then shooting into a wad of tissue, instead of like being in your woman's body and having a warm vagina wrapped around your cock, and feeling her beautiful breast and hearing her moan as she appreciates you, like having an actual encounter with that, as opposed to watching a screen of a woman who's like, that you've seen in 5 other videos with 10 other guys. It's like, no, this is your woman celebrating you and appreciating you and respecting and championing your body.
I think that a lot of women don't know or don't understand or don't believe that sex for a man with a woman that he is truly enamored with and that he loves deeply is or the deepest form of connection that he can experience. And while I do believe it's true that some men can disconnect, I think these are more men who exhibit a more promiscuous lifestyle or who have been traumatized in some way. And you often hear women complaining about that. It's like, oh, I meant nothing to him. I was just a body to him and this and that. But I think most men, the sexual act of a woman that they care about is truly profound. It really is.
I have a dear friend. I did this amazing interview with a dear friend of mine. His name is Zan Perion. And he said this most beautiful, I've never heard a man say this before. He said, Arica, sometimes when a man is with a woman, when he's inside of her, in that moment, all of his sins are forgiven. And I was like, that's really profound, really profound.
I gotta tell you, that resonates pretty strongly.
It was, my mouth dropped when he said those words. I thought, that is beautiful and brilliant.
Yeah. Wow. Well, maybe some of our male viewers will feel the same way. Really.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that. Wow.
Yeah.
And what advice do you have for men that feel they have an issue with this and how it can affect their future relationships?
Here's the thing. I think this is the one thing that I see with men, and this isn't to come down on men, because listen, I'm the biggest champion of men, and I love men, and I think that a lot of men, because men haven't been empowered emotionally, men have been more shamed emotionally than they have been empowered. that a lot of men, because they don't have emotional awareness of like what their lack of emotions is costing them. You know, when you are addicted to porn, you don't feel as in love with your wife. You don't feel as in love with women. And so men, because they're not aware of that, they're less inclined to do something. And I see a lot of men waiting to the last minute to do something where it's almost too late. And so I would say, if you're hearing this right now and you go, that's me, today is the day that you do something. You know, the beauty of the information age that we live in is the fact that you can get on YouTube and you can type porn addiction help. And there's a plethora of coaches out there who are finite on their process of helping you rehabilitate, of helping you reclaim your life. Because at the end of the day, you have to understand that when you're out of control, you're a slave to something else, whether it's alcohol, whether it's sex, whether it's porn, you are no longer in control. And I know for men really want to feel like they're in control, you know, and it's like when something is conquering you, you no longer have control. Take your control back, take your power back, do something today. Get on YouTube, get on Google. There's so many resources. There are so many people to support you in that journey. Don't go at it alone, because that is the dark side of pornography. The darkest side of pornography is shame. And shame is the most abusive foe you can have in your life. Shame will beat the shit out of you day in, day out. And so what porn does is it just continues to isolate men and dig that hole deeper and deeper and deeper of shame. And so the first place to do is to come out of shame. Maybe it's feeling safe and just watching some videos about porn addiction. Maybe that's a safer bet for you. But at some point you want to reach out. Stick with what's safe. Find a YouTube video about porn addiction. Feel comfortable with that. Then find a coach that resonates with you, that you align with, that resonates, and reach out to them and say, hey, I need help. Because, you know, when you don't do that, you know, any person who's an addict, like, it will eventually cost them their resources, their relationships, their confidence. You're not going to perform as well as work. You're probably not going to make as much money. Like, realize that it's costing you and do something about it. Don't wait.
It's sorry.
The first thing I would do, if you're watching this and you're like, ouch, this is hitting me, get on YouTube right away and Google and type in porn addiction help. Do it right away. And there's so many coaches there that are willing to support you.
I was going to say it's like any mental health or emotional health issue, right? And getting help, because it's so hard to help yourself without sometimes an external focus to give you some objectivity, right? Because you're part of the system, right? You're part of the system. So, you know, the very circuits that are involved in the helping are effective.
Yeah, and, absolutely.
You know what I mean? So thank you for going there and sharing that personal story with us. So I wanted to look a little bit more at some other issues. Are there other issues that you're really passionate about that you want to share with us right now? I failed to ask you that, and I think it's very important that I do.
Oh, you know, I think for me, one of the things I'm passionate about is like helping men like really connect with women, connecting with themselves, but connecting with women. You know, I feel like men, you know, being able to connect to a woman's heart, being able to speak into a woman's heart. It's like when a guy is able to do that, he is able to really win his woman over, but also make his life really easy. I remember working with a client of mine, and his wife, he put a testimonial, or he has a testimonial on my website, and he was about to lose his wife. There were divorce papers. They were in the making, and he called me and he said, I've hired tons of coaches, and he said, you know, I've spent thousands of dollars, and he said, my wife is leaving me. You're kind of my last resort. Can you help me get my wife back? And so I said, I can, if she's willing. And I said, but it's going to take a lot of work on your end. And what had happened was he essentially, you know, in many regards, he failed his wife on a very deep personal level. And I said, you have to take ownership, full responsibility. And I said, this is what her heart has experienced. And he said, I never saw it that way. And I said, when you apologize to her, this is what her heart needs. And so he went to her with that language and he said, this is what I did to you. And this is how I know you felt as a result of what I did. And she said to him, how do you know this? Are you watching me? Have you been recording me? How do you know that this is my experience? And I think that's one of the things that I love to do for men, is be able to help them cultivate a language of how to speak to their woman's heart. But it's always starting from what we said at the beginning, the precedence of men valuing their own hearts. And most of us don't even understand that our hearts are valuable, that, you know, if you go to the Bible, it says that the heart is the wellspring of life. Like everything comes from the heart. We think it all comes from the mind. The mind is a servant to the heart. The heart is the cornerstone. It all flows out of that. So it's like empowering men to cultivate a relationship with their own heart, and feeling comfortable with that, and having conversation and language around that, but also empowering men to be able to do that for the women in their life.
Wow.
It's very powerful.
Yeah,
Very powerful.
that is absolutely. You also talk about the maintenance and the improvement of existing relationships, right? Can you speak to that? Can you give us some ideas about how men can be proactive in improving an existing relationship?
One question that I give a lot of men, and most of them don't, most of them don't have the courage to ask this on a consistent basis, but if they did do it, it would change their lives, is asking your woman this. I had a client, he said, Arica, it's deceptively simple. And I said, yes, it is. And it's this question: how am I showing up for your heart? How did I show up for your heart today? And that goes both ways. Both ways. How did I show up for your heart today? Because a lot of times the things that couples fight about, the things that we fight about in relationships, they're symptomatic. They're not going to the root. At the end of the day, you guys aren't getting along because somewhere you violated each other's heart. So if you can ask, how did I show up for your heart today? That's a loaded question. She can be, baby, you, like, when this thing happened and I told you about it and you were so responsive, I felt so loved by you. And it's like, and the guy's like, shit, I didn't even know I did that. Or it can be like, babe, I shared this with you and you completely just negated that. You completely dismissed me. And I felt so hurt. I felt so lost. I felt so alone. Fuck, babe, I didn't even realize I did that. I was so caught up in work. I didn't even realize that I had dismissed you. Oh my gosh, I am so sorry, my darling. So sorry. I feel like that very meaty question, while it may not sound like a very practical question to ask someone every day, if you could, I always tell people it's a muscle. It may not feel practical today, but let me tell you, you do this for a month, you do it for 2 months, you've just cultivated a new muscle. You've just gone to the gym of heart, the heart gym, and you've cultivated a new muscle in your relationship. It may not feel practical. It may feel weird at first. Who cares? So does it when you've been eating, McDonald's every day and you show up at the gym and start drinking green juices and changing your diet. None of that feels great at first. But then when you get the results, when you feel clear, when you like looking at yourself in the mirror, well, that becomes exciting. It's the same thing when you're able to cultivate this muscle that doesn't feel as practical at the beginning, but when you cultivate it and it becomes a norm, the reward of that, of seeing your wife, her eyes light up, of seeing her, not bitching at you as much about stupid things that don't even matter. Because why? She feels supported by you. She feels loved by you. She feels seen by you. She feels celebrated. She feels honored by you because you're asking her this simple question every day and you're getting to the root cause. You're getting to the meat of it. You're getting past the noise. You're getting past the bullshit and you're getting to the meat of what's really going on inside of her. It's a very simple question, but it's deceptively simple, as my client said.
How did I show up for your heart today?
Yeah.
Okay, guys.
Sorry. And for some women, they're like, what are you talking about? And they may not have language. Oh, well, then you both go on the journey. Otherwise, you keep bitching about the trash. You keep bitching about, the coworker that you keep talking to that she feels threatened by. You bitch about how, she's not dressing up for you as much. You guys aren't having sex as much. It all goes down to the heart. The heart is the wellspring of life. It all goes back to the heart. Show up for our heart. Use this language around how to show up for our heart, and watch your relationship transform.
You know, in the last couple of years, two of my best friends were approached by their wives who basically said the same thing. I love you, but I'm not in love with you anymore. It's over.
Ugh.
Now, and these are two of my closest friends who were the not only consummate, what appeared to be consummate and caring husbands, but fathers as well. They did everything for their family.
Yeah.
So, what could have happened there?
Yeah.
Let's make it more generic, because obviously you can't talk to my friends exactly, but you hear this a lot, right? And what do you think has happened to men and to relationships where the men think that they are doing their very best? I mean, I've heard of men who they cook, they clean, they have their full-time job, they pay the bills, they try to initiate intimacy. The wife is no longer interested. And I have one friend who said, no sex for 2 years.
Oh, fuck that.
And they're good men. They're good men.
Yeah.
So and I don't know if they asked the question, how have I shown up for your heart today, right? I mean, I think there may be something else going. Well, I mean, because women are human, right? We're all human. You don't pedestalize one gender over another, or one sex over another. So obviously, it takes two to make the relationship work, right? It takes two to tango. So what do you have to say about that in terms of what might have happened there?
I actually have a lot of these guys come to me as clients. And the thing is, they become the perpetual nice guy in the relationship. Society, what does society tell men? Go to college,
provider,
get a job, get married, get a mortgage, have children, go on a couple of vacations. This is life. And this is the box that society gives men. And so men go, okay, my role is to what you just said, be the provider. And I always bring it back to this. And I always tell men this: when you and your wife when she walked down that aisle and you guys made a covenant and you exchanged some very strong vows with one another, at any moment in those vows, did you say, I'm going to pay the mortgage on time? I'm going to come home and do the dishes? Like, what was it that made you guys get to that altar and exchange those vows? It was the connection between one another. And what happens is, because men get like, okay, now my role has changed and it's no longer about the connection and wooing my wife. Now it's about sustaining the lifestyle that we've created, the home, the this, the that. And it's like, yeah, but you lost sight of the connection of the actual relationship. And so the mortgage becomes the priority. The bills become the priority. And while those are, yes, survival needs that we need, once that's taken care of, you've got to go back to the connection. You've got to go back to that emotional intimacy, for a guy to allow their marriage to go 2 years without sex. I'm like, what were you doing? Week 2, month 2 of that, you should be sitting in a damn therapist's office going, no, we're going to talk about this. We didn't sign up for this. We didn't sign up for a loveless marriage. But the nice guy goes, oh, I'm just going to keep accommodating her. There's no polarity. The nice guy starts losing his polarity in the relationship. I'm just going to keep making her happy. No, you make yourself happy. You're going to bed with a hard penis that's not getting any love. You're not loving on yourself. You're negating yourself. You're sacrificing yourself to make everybody else happy, but you're miserable. And I always say this, it's like the airplane. Put the oxygen mask on yourself first before everyone else. And so many guys start throwing themselves on the back burner and they lose themselves. Women do it too. They lose themselves. And she says, I'm no longer in love with you because you're not there. You were not in the relationship. You quit showing up in the relationship. You showed up as the provider, but you didn't show up as a man that she fell in love with, because you haven't paid attention to that guy in a long time. You've gotten so busy with the kids and the mortgage and everyone else that you lost you. How can she love you? Because you don't even love you, because you don't know where you are. And I know that's really, when I tell my clients, it's really hard for them to hear, really hard, and not in a mean way, but they're just like, ouch. The truth of it is very strong. And the cost of, yeah, I lost a marriage. Now my kids have to live between two homes. Now I'm paying alimony. Now I'm paying for two mortgages. It comes with severe consequences. And it's like that emotional connection, that connection with himself, and that connection in terms of intimacy gets lost. Week 2, like if you're not happy in your marriage and she's not having sex with you, I'd be on the phone with a therapist right away. I don't want to. You know what? This isn't working for me. I'm not doing this. I'm not happy. Nip it in the bud right away. But letting it go for 2 years, no, absolutely not. Nip it in the bud immediately. This isn't working for me. I'm not happy.
That's really interesting. I'm really glad I asked you that question. It's a form of pedestalization, I think, with men who lose themselves and go on the back burner, as you mentioned. Yeah. And why is it that so many men pedestalize women but think that they're doing the right thing? Does it boil down to insecurity and not seeing one's value?
I think it boils down to what men have been taught. Like women were taught, like, don't ruffle people's feathers, be nice. Men get taught provide. Men get taught provide. Don't be rude to a woman. These are things that men get conditioned with very early on. Yes. Just provide, just be the good guy. Don't rock the boat. Especially, I have to say, mainly in Western culture. Don't rock the boat. Be the nice guy. Get along with everyone. That's what makes a good guy. No, it doesn't. It makes a neutered guy. It makes a guy walking through life with no balls and no spine. Your job in life is not to be a good guy. Your job in life is to be true to yourself first.
Arica, you see this conditioning even beginning in school, with the emphasis on the more feminine behavior. You often hear little boys getting called out for their behavior, and now we're getting into a very controversial topic here, and I actually love to talk with you about this more. Probably off the record first, but you see this, and I can't help but agree. There's this societal expectation and conditioning that occurs, and this expectation for performance that a lot of men put on themselves to continue to perform despite blah blah blah, or not being happy or losing himself. And I would like to seed into your recent pandemic video, which I found to be very moving, because in it you do more than just address the stress of this pandemic. You talk about being forced to learn about the self, being forced to consider performance versus rest, and how this is kind of a message for us to take a rest, or else you'll be given a rest.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So I think this is a big topic pregnant with possibility. So let's just look at, okay, you talked about performance versus rest in the context of the pandemic. Can you address this for us, please? Because I found it very moving.
Sure. Yeah, I think that, we've established that men, are inundated with, like, your job as a man is to perform well. And what happens, and I think even with women, as women become more independent, we get kind of caught up in that. And what I always tell people is this, like, rest is not a luxury, it's a necessity. Right now, the pandemic has forced people to stop performing. You can't go to work. You can't get in the car and go do this. You can't go to your sports. You can't do this. It's like you have to stay in and chill. And we don't want to do that because sometimes in the rest, we don't like what we feel. We don't like what we see. We don't like the voices that come through our head and nag at us. And so what we do is we like to stay very busy with performance because that's safe, because we never have to confront what's going on inside. But rest really provides an opportunity to look in the mirror and go, what's really going on inside of me? I think the beauty of Corona is like people are seeing like, am I really living the life that I want? I think people are really questioning their lives and how they're living their lives and where they're living. A lot of people are moving. A lot of people are going, is this the kind of work I really want to be in? It's really forcing us to, I think a lot of life has been dictated for us. Like I said, you go to school, you do that. And it's like people are living lives that they didn't even design for themselves. Someone else designed this life for them and they wonder why they're not fulfilled. And so I feel like when we come to a place where we have to rest, there's an unsettling there, which is why we don't like to rest, because we feel unsettled, because those big questions come up whether we like it or not. The subconscious brings them up and is like, hey, this is what's going on in the background. And if we will actually run into rest as opposed to run away from it, having those hard conversations with ourselves, being real, being honest with ourselves, that's when true liberty begins. That's when we take our power and our ownership back of our lives, is going, what is it that I really want? What is it that really matters to me? What is it that really makes my life fulfilled? Because too often we negotiate and we compromise and we sell ourselves into a life. We sell ourselves into this ethos of this is what makes me happy. And it's like, but are you? Or do you have to spend most of your time, watching TV and drinking tons of booze or porn, or, going out to very fancy dinners that you're not even enjoying just because you want to be able to put on social media, we went to this fine dining establishment, Are you really living that life? I know for me, when I came to Bali and then I left and I went back to LA, and that was very confronting for me because, I lived in France, Bali, and then Thailand. And Thailand is a very, slow paced life, which really forces you to rest. And I remember having that experience and going back to LA and just thinking like, it just didn't resonate with me anymore. Going to the fancy restaurants, being stuck in traffic every day, like none of that was feeling as good for me, having challenges with really connecting with people on a very heart level, as opposed to just like very superficial conversations. None of it was resonating. And the thing is, rest will show you your truth. And because I was in such a state of rest from coming from Thailand, those things were very confronting very quickly. And I found, I was like, my heart doesn't feel alive. And in that rest, I was able to make a promise to myself. And I told myself, Arica, my heart, I talk to my heart like it's a person. I feel like I carry a person on the inside. My heart is a person. And I said, Arica, no matter what, baby girl, I will always make sure that I set you up so that your life feels like you're living a fulfilled life. I will never compromise or negotiate with you and force you into a lifestyle that doesn't make you feel fully alive. My favorite book is called Waking the Dead. It's where a lot of my coaching comes from. I got a hold of it when I was in my 20s by a man named John Eldridge. And he says, it's the glory of God that makes man fully alive. Like, the glory of God is for man to be fully alive. And when we're in rest, we can ask ourselves that honest question. Am I fully alive? Am I fully alive? Am I living my life from my heart? Do I wake up? And that's a big reason why I live in Bali. And I spoke to my mother. My mother lives in Texas. And, it's so hard for me to be so far away. She's like, but baby, it's a 34-hour flight. And I said, Mom, but there's not a day that goes by, here that I don't feel fully alive. And I felt myself in Los Angeles really compromising with myself and really saying, okay, yeah, ha, ha, ha. I went on this hike. I'm alive. Ha, ha. I went to this fancy dinner. I'm alive. And I'm like, but I don't feel alive. I feel agitated. I feel sad. I always tell people this, I had a really glamorous life in Los Angeles. LA can really provide a very glamorous life for you. And I remember living in a very beautiful home and driving a very fancy car and going to really nice restaurants and going to very nice vacations. But I would see my friends back in Bali, and I would see a picture of them posting of a rice field. I keep looking away because I have a rice field behind me. And I would see the rice fields. I'd see the palm trees. I'd see them posting a picture of their dragon fruit pink smoothie bowl. I'd see them all sitting together on the beach for sunset. And I would just weep and weep and weep and weep and go, that's what my heart longs for. That's what my soul longs for. For me, that's the realness of life, being out in nature, having immediate quality time with my friends. My friends in LA, I remember one friend, she said, her and her husband couldn't see me and my former partner for another 2 months because their schedule was so full. And that was a big wake up call for me. And it was like, yeah, to see your friends, you had to put them on calendars, and there's logistics to it because, in LA, there's so much traffic and you can't just go. And now it's like, if I want to go see sunsets with a friend, I send them a WhatsApp, we jump on a motorbike and we're in the beach in 5 minutes, drinking a coconut, having a glass of wine, watching a sunset in 5 minutes. And to me, this is fully living alive. But I couldn't get those answers for myself until I really came to a place of rest. And I think that's the beauty of Corona, is really forcing us to go, what's really going on inside of me? What is it that I really want? And can I face that truth? And do I have the courage to do something about it?
Wow. As I mentioned, I was really struck by that message, and the message of being forced to stay home more as coming home, right? More as coming home.
Yeah.
And learning about oneself and being able to live with oneself and owning yourself, finally owning yourself.
Yeah.
But I would be remiss in my questioning to a world-class dating and relationship expert if I didn't ask you for some practical advice for our viewers on dating during the pandemic, with these restrictions, with Zoom calls, with not seeing people in person, with even how to initiate communication with someone, with I'll be honest with you, I haven't even I'm single, I haven't put myself out there at all during the entire pandemic. No online dating, nothing. A few meetups and things I was interested in, but that was about it, And
I would say this is the best time to be dating because people are not so consumed with the bullshit right now. We have been stripped to our bare necessities, and we are understanding the value of relationship. We are faced, and when I'm a bit of a hypocrite here because I'm in Bali and it's a bit different, but as a whole, as a world, we are being faced with the reality that loneliness is a bitch and it sucks.
Yeah.
And it's not fun and it makes us feel a little crazy. And this pandemic is going, we need relationship. We need one another. Having another human being in your life is not a byproduct. It is a core need. And right now, because of Corona, we've been stripped of all the bullshit because we haven't been able to distract. We've been forced to come home to ourselves. And when I said come home, and what I meant in that video is coming back to your heart. That's what I mean by coming home. Your heart is your home. And so people are really faced with the mirror of like, I really need relationship. Doing life alone sucks balls. Hairy, sweaty balls that's been playing basketball all day. Those kind of balls. Stinky balls. It sucks. So I would highly encourage people. Now is the time to really connect with people. Get people on a Zoom call. Ask them about their dreams. Because, people are in a state of fear. So when a person's in a state of fear, they need to dream to come out of it. Like just staying in despair doesn't help. Asking a woman, like, what is the one trip you want to take when you come out of this pandemic? Like, what have you learned about yourself? Like asking these insightful questions. What have you learned about yourself in this pandemic? What's the first date? If you and I were to go on a date, what's the first date that I could take you on? But now is the time to be connecting with people. And I would say, don't sit there and stay on chats. If where you are, you can just video, and then get them on the whatever's available. Every area has different rules. I know the United States are starting to open up a little bit more, but you're in Canada, it's more strict. People in Australia, it's everywhere is different. Find what resources you have and make the most out of it. I had a client of mine, he took a blanket and him and this girl went for a hike and they had a picnic on their he went out in nature. They were allowed to hike at the time, It's like, fine, but now is the time to be connecting with people. Don't put it off. Don't wait until after the pandemic, and make sure that you're taking care of yourself. Make sure that you're using your time in a wise way. Learn something new. I always tell men, like, listen, women love to learn something new. If you can teach a woman something, if you can show her a skill that she doesn't have, that's exciting for her. Make yourself more exciting in this time. Can you learn a new language? Can you learn a new skill? Can you learn a new vocation? Can you get into yoga? Can you bend in ways you've never bent before? Can you develop muscles that you've never developed because you can do videos on YouTube? Like, really push yourself to become someone that's do you find yourself interesting, and how can you make yourself more interesting? Yeah. I always like when I'm on a date, and I always like to ask myself, like, if I were on the other side, if I was that person and they were on a date with me, if I'm me, would I enjoy myself? And it's like, you have to be practical about that. Like, when you're talking to women on the video, like, am I asking her questions that I want to be asked? Like, would I be bored if I were her? But I think now is the time more than ever to seize the opportunity of relationship and meeting people, because people are so vulnerable. And that's the best time to meet someone, is when they're in a vulnerable state.
It's so true. I mean, we did have a relaxing of our restrictions a couple of times, and a friend invited me out for some wings, and I'm sitting on a patio, and she went to go to the washroom, and I noticed there were two women sitting at a table, and they were just looking over and smiling, and I'm just like, okay, people are looking for connection. They're
hungry for it.
Hungry for attention. And I was standing on the street corner with a buddy after leaving a restaurant, and this again was during when the restrictions were relaxed. Now we're in a pretty serious stay-at-home order right now. And a woman walked by, and she was masked. I looked at her, and we made eye contact, and her eyes just crinkled up. So I couldn't see the smile, but I knew she was really smiling hard. And she just kept eye contact the whole time. And I turned to my friend and I said, wow, I said, people are really, really hurting for engagement. They really want to engage. And it's nice, but it's frustrating at the same time.
Sure.
Because we're all in this together, right? But typically I'm very outgoing.
Yeah.
It's hard to know what to do, and I know I speak for thousands of people in that regard, right? So, but hopefully these things will pass. But as you mentioned, it's really giving us an appreciation for this need for company and connection.
Yeah.
Right.
And I think it's the best time. It's the easiest way to ask the riskiest questions too. You're on a video call. I mean, it's not like, whereas I feel like when you're in person with someone, you start asking really risky questions, like what do you dream of? And what are you most afraid of in this time? And what kind of date do you want to go on? And what's one thing that you regret that you didn't do, that Corona's like, I should have done that? Like, asking very heartfelt, sincere, deep, connecting questions like that. Typically, we're not going to do that on a first date because it feels awkward and the person's there. But on video, you shouldn't give a shit.
No.
Now is the time. And it's like, okay, so they'll never meet me on a Zoom call again. Shucks.
Yeah, that's true. But
it's those questions that create the magic.
So what are your dreams, Arica?
Well, my dream is to be the Tony Robbins of intimacy. That's all I want.
His name came up finally. I mentioned NLP earlier, and boom, there it is, Tony Robbins.
I want to be the Tony Robbins of intimacy. I want to travel the world. I want to empower people with relationships. I want to empower people to realize that they are lovable right where they are. That's the heartbeat of my message, is like, having a relationship is a beautiful thing, but right now in this moment, in every YouTube video I end with, in this moment right now, that you are so loved. And I think people need to hear that right now, especially with loneliness. And I want to say that to whoever's watching this. I don't know what you're going through. I don't know the frustration you must be feeling, but I can promise you this, that you are loved, that you were brought into this world because of love, and that you are loved. And people will say, Arica, how can you love me? You don't even know me. Love is energy. I love people that I've never gotten to physically meet, but you know, it's when you connect with another soul, there's love. And if you've been willing to listen to me and Sam for the past almost 2 hours, yeah, I hope that you feel loved, because you are loved. And that's the most important thing. So yeah, that's my dream, is to travel the world. And I want people to come to my conferences and walk out and go, I never knew how loved I really was. I want to see them walking out in tears, shooken up, going, I never knew I was this loved. Because when a person knows that they're loved, they become unstoppable.
After speaking with you and getting to know you a bit, I will say that I am sure that's going to happen.
Thank you. Thank you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think this may be a good place for us to wrap it up for this call, because I'm going to get you to commit to another interview with me. Whether you like it or not, hopefully you'll like it.
I enjoy these interviews with you. They're so easygoing. You ask great questions.
Well, the honor is mine. Truly, honestly, the honor is mine. And I don't want you to go anywhere, but I will sign off for us right now. And to say that on behalf of myself, Sam Dubé, and the Toronto Business Journal, it was truly an honor and a pleasure to host you here today. Arica Angelo, world-class dating and relationship expert for men, YouTuber par excellence, as we say in French, with millions of views, and a truly compassionate woman who is doing tremendous work, helping hundreds of thousands, millions of men in their pursuit of happiness through relationships with women. And for that, I thank you.
Thank you so much for that.
You're very welcome. So please don't go anywhere. Thank you again. And to our viewers, thank you for staying with us. And we'll see you again soon. And we will see Arica again as well. Thank you.